Heather, thank you so much for coming on today. I'm excited to talk about your new venture. So thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I see you're a serial entrepreneur and have many hats like myself. So your new venture, I'd love to just talk to you about Beyond Fresh and how you decided to do that.
Yeah, thanks so much. So it really came out of first a passion. So while I was, very passionate about the fashion industry and was having a wonderful career and loved what I was doing, on the side, after I became a mom to a sick child, Jax was born, really ill, and it was touch and go. And as he started to heal and get better, there's a lot of medications he had to take to keep him healthy. The same time they were keeping him healthy, what were they doing to his body? And so I started to read up a lot about it, and it really led me into nutrition. And at the same time, I had my first, dance with nutrition after I had Jax, also because I gained an enormous amount of weight with him. I gained like 65 pounds. So like after he was out, I still had like 35 pounds of weight gain to deal with, and he was ill. So I wasn't focused on me. I was focused on my child. But at the same time, I was understanding weight loss nutrition, which I didn't really have ever really to focus on. I was also understanding nutrition as medicine. Mm-hmm. So at the same time, without even realizing it, I had these two worlds collide. And as I was reading and doing research, I recognized that I didn't want to read diet theory. I wanted the science in it. I wanted to understand nutrition from the scientific level. And so I went back to school and I studied nutrition. And when I got out of that course, I really felt like I had to scream from the rooftops, so to speak, about how much propaganda is out there. Mm-hmm. There are so many people out there trying to do the right thing, and they are fooled by marketers. They are fooled by big food and big pharma, by the way. And I wanted to scream it from the rooftops. So what I did is I organized a climb to Kilimanjaro with 19 women.
Wow.
And I used that platform of nutrition, but also sharing and encouraging and supporting one another into a whole new business that really inspires me every day. So it's not just about Beyond Fresh, which are organic food supplements and also an education, but it's also about retreats that we do and big adventure climbs that we do and the health coaching that we do. So it's not about selling a product anymore. It's about, for me, it never was with Yummy either. But this is even bigger. It's about supporting, being inclusive, being a community. And that's what it's all about. That's how it got started. And that's where we are.
That's awesome. I'm sorry to hear about your son. I hope he's doing better.
Oh, he's 16. I just dropped him off at work and he is growing and strong and he's a fighter like you can't believe. So thank you.
That's awesome. Awesome. And then did you go to IIN?
I did.
Oh yeah. So I went too. I graduated in 2008.
Yeah. I was a little bit after you. Okay. Jax was born in 2004. And, my journey was, I'm trying to think, like about 7 years ago now.
Right. So that's great. That's a great program. It just kind of gets you. When I went, no one even knew what GMO was, like it was totally like, I remember coming back and I went same reason. My kids had some health issues and like ADD. And I was like, why is this happening? How can I manage it? Right. And so that's why I went. And I remember just saying to my friends, like no one was the juice craze, like the whole green drink craze had not even started. No one knew what GMO was. I remember saying to my friends, don't drink milk. And they're like, what are you talking about? They thought I was crazy. So I totally get what you're saying. That's great. So, okay, you had this idea to start a supplement company. I do feel like it is a saturated industry because there's a lot of, like, as you said, whitewashing or greenwashing, whatever they call it these days.
Yeah.
And so, like you don't really know because it's an unregulated industry. There's no really policing of what's happening. So how did you decide, where did you get the science from? And then where did you find the manufacturer? Because that's a hard part.
Well, you have to meet someone that really believes in what you believe in. And so you're right, it is a saturated market, but it's not saturated with truth tellers. It's not saturated with clean products, which is mine. So yes, I could hide something in the food label, but that's not what we do. Every single thing on my food label, you can read, understand, what it is. It's all whole food ingredients. And we also make it affordable. And that was the big difference. I found that some of these, and it's all plant-based. And really understanding plant foods and plant-based whole foods, I think is the most important shift that we make as Americans. And so we didn't even hear about GMO. Like you said, we didn't even know that. Now we really have to push toward a plant-based initiative entirely. And a lot of people don't even know you can get protein from a plant. They think protein comes from only animals and butter and, fat that comes from animals. So I think that there is an education to be had and simplifying how we're eating and getting back down to the basics. That's what I discovered at INN. Everybody has their theory because it worked for them. But if you take one line from all of them, it's eat clean whole food.
Yep. And more
That's
plants.
really what it is.
You should be concentrating more on the greens than you should on anything else, because you can always get protein. That's easy to get. Yeah. I find proteins, they're always pushing. You can always get a slice of chicken somewhere.
Right. But all chicken isn't created equal.
Oh, of course. Yes.
On any level. And there's even new research coming out now about chicken and the ages that are in chicken types of meat. And by the way, chicken is probably the worst meat.
The dirtiest food.
I think pork comes in second when it's not organically farmed and grass fed and raised in that environment. It's poison, literally.
No, it's true. Okay. So I see you have a co-founder.
That's my manufacturing side. So the co-founder is the guy who has been in this business his whole life. And I was able to find an organic manufacturer that has relationships with these farmers and has been doing it that way since the 70s, and just didn't change. So while their business did branch off to bigger businesses, they always kept this little piece of it that was pure. And so that's the piece that I got to lock into. And together we have Beyond Fresh.
So that's great. So when you approached him, I assume you didn't have a relationship before with him.
Nope.
And so instead of actually having him just be your supplier, you said, let's partner together. And he was
100%. Yeah,
that's great.
And he loves doing it. He wants to push out. He's just not the face of the brand. He understands behind. I mean, he knows the industry so well. I was coming in a little yellow bellied. I come in from the fashion industry, moving from clothes to food, the whole thing is very different, but there's still a general rule for it for me. And that is authenticity.
That's great.
And I've always been authentic in my clothing company and my clothing initiative, whether I was designing for someone else and using them as muse to represent what they wanted, or myself with my brand representing what I felt was a white space. And that's now what we're doing together with Beyond Fresh.
That's great. And now where are you distributing?
So I started only on television shopping. So I launched the brand on Shop HQ, which is one of the TV shopping channels. It's a little bit more of the boutique channel, has a little bit more expensive stuff on it, more boutique stuff on it, where I was the only natural supplement supplier there. And so we really established a wonderful relationship where I gave them an exclusive for the launch for a couple years, where I could really get into the homes and the living rooms of the consumer. I wanted to educate them. I wanted to talk to them. I wanted to get the brand right. And we actually started out as a brand called Nutritionary, the A to Z of nutrition.
Okay.
And then we realized that kind of would limit us in the future growth of the brand. And so after a couple years, we gathered back up our things and we rebranded and we relaunched. So it was a 4-year journey for me on television shopping solely. I wanted to really get the consumer, hear them, be directly in touch with them, be in their faces, me talking, asking me the questions, not a brand. And now we've since launched our website. So beyondfresh.com is up and running. And we are working right now with some really exciting retail deal partners and discussing that. And so I can't wait to be able to announce those. But right now it's available on beyondfresh.com. And we do specials and deals and exclusives with Shop HQ about once a month.
That's awesome. Now, is there anything you wish you knew now that you didn't know when you started?
No, I think every single lesson that I've learned in, this organic food supplement space, it has been, everything to me. Every lesson, I'm still learning lessons.
Right.
One of the things I learned about myself and the world, I'm 51 years old now, and the world changes, and it changes on a vast level, not like it did before social media. And, we're probably somewhere around the same age.
Yeah. I just turned 50.
Oh, okay. Well, if 50 I thought it was going to be this great year for me because I felt so healthy and strong and wise and all that. But what I didn't expect was all the realizations that come at 50, all these kind of like your mind, all of a sudden, like these doors open and you start to understand yourself, the world, life lessons a little bit better, or they confuse you a little bit more. So for me, and plus it was COVID, for me, 50 was a real rediscovery of myself and a real getting back in touch with myself and listening really closely to my inner voice and not letting the answer come to the question right away. That has been a journey for me because I know the answers all the time. You know what I mean? If I don't know it right away, I probably won't know it and I need to research it. But that is all cognitive. And I had to learn to just sit in the subconscious a little bit. So that's been the work that I've been doing at 50. And it's rewarding as hell. It's hard, but it's rewarding as hell.
No, it's true. You definitely have a new perspective. You kind of just, like you said, take a deep breath and just kind of do your truth, right? Like I always talk about now, like it's you have to find your truth because that's what you need to get out in the world,
The second phase, you know what I mean? It's like, if you don't take pause in the middle, the most beautiful hummingbird is out my window. Hi, baby. I have this big bouquet of flowers and he's trying to get in at it. I hope he doesn't hit his head on the wall. Sorry, I digress, but nature is everything right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like the second chapter. And now if you don't take pause and look back at the first half of your life in order to assess and reestablish the second half, then I think you're missing out. And I was ready when I first turned 50 to rush right through that, like just keep going. And the universe was like, no, honey, you won't sit down for a second.
No, it's true. It's true. So as you've been growing your company, talk to me about, because I think some of the hardest part about growing a company is building your systems and building your team in place. Yeah. So do you have a team now? Or are you still outsourcing? Like what does that look like for people?
So we have a team. We have a nucleus team because that works on everything Heather Thomson. So I have my own nucleus team. And then we have a Beyond Fresh team that focuses only on Beyond Fresh. And then I have a podcast team, you know what I mean? And they're not, when I say teams, a team could be 3 people. I'm not talking, where I'm having 100 reports where I've had in the past, So because my partner was already established in the manufacturing side of organic supplements, superfoods, and that sort of thing for many years, that was the partnership. I was able to lean into that side and he was able to lean into my front side, marketing side, and how I felt like we should merchandise it, put it together, that we really share in that. So I do have a team like from the warehouse to systems and things like that we're in place, but we've had to make some pivots because the business with my partner was also not really ever a direct to consumer model. It was really big businesses, big bulk pallets, not shipping one from a warehouse.
Yeah.
So, there's been some pivots we've had to make with that, but they're all exciting. And, we fail fast.
Learn quick, fail fast.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing. You wear a lot of hats. Like, how do you juggle it all? Like how are you keeping everything? Like you just talked 3 different teams right here when we just spoke, so how are you juggling all that?
I've learned through just some management reading and style. It changes just because, I'm 51 and I've managed big teams doesn't mean that I'm done and all the work is done. We're ever evolving. People are evolving, changing. I'm dealing with youth, millennial, different types of ideas. So I still read a lot. And I think one of the best things that I've done is really hold true to these team meetings that we have, these touch points. And I try to keep them to 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. So that, because, sometimes we have these hour and a half long calls and then it's like, whoa. And yes, they happen and they need to happen sometimes. But those check-ins where everybody can retain what's at hand right this second and what kind of the marching orders or what we need to do this week. So I think these half-hour touch points with each team that happen a couple times during the week, like 2 or 3 times during the week, have been a lot more beneficial to me than these big team meetings for an hour long, especially in Zoom when you're not in person. Mm-hmm. We've had to pivot so much in that way when you're not directly dealing with someone and passing paper and looking at ideas together. I've had to pivot. So quick touch points and quick touch bases, more in a multitude, have been really serving me.
Now, have they been scheduled or are they more impromptu? Because everyone's working they are scheduled. Because everyone's working, it's so hard to be like, okay, it's every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9 o'clock or whatever.
It's horrible. And that's, I know that I'm sure one of the questions that you're going to ask me is like, what has COVID done and how can you make, you know what I mean? And and I'm an organization freak. I'm a little OCD actually. You know what I mean? So it's good because it's given me some time to rest in that and loosen up, so to speak, from my family and all that kind of stuff. And also given me a room to grow and pivot. And so organization has been most difficult for me in COVID. I'm working out of my home. Like where was that paper? Where can everything live? Where I have an office where I'm not constantly moving and picking up stuff and, having to produce myself.
Right.
There's no way when you're on live TV and there's no one else in the room with you, it's very taxing.
It's true. It's true. What is one of your favorite books, or what is a book that you're reading now? Because you said,
well, I'm not reading right now. I'm reading a book called Caste. Which is about, racism and dissolving white supremacy, trying to understand it and, anti-Blackness. That's really been a real focus of mine right now for my own evolution and growth. Again, we're never done. It changes, It evolves, and we have to look at it. But I do a lot of internet surfing on some management things. So I wish I had one to tell you off the top of my head. There's this one guy, Brian Hain, I think I don't know his name exactly, but that I found through the internet. Tips on marketing where they put blogs out. So I've been reading more, I think, blogs.
Yeah, that's what I do.
And I kind of did it more at the beginning of COVID, and I used it when I needed it. And now I'm using it and it's working. So I'm on to some other things I need work on.
That's great. And tell us about your podcast. So how long ago did you start that?
Yeah. So we launched it right before COVID hit. I had recorded, I think, maybe 4 episodes. In studio, the whole 9 yards. And then COVID hit and the whole world closed down. And then when we started to try to find our footing again, we started doing the podcast again on Zoom, which has been really such a wonderful eye opener because I want both. I want to be able to Zoom with you because, if say you were in LA right now, we would have had to schedule plane flights and all that kind of stuff. And this really works. Zoom really works well for this. So I love the substitution of Zoom for time, travel, efficiency, that sort of thing. But I'm really excited, obviously, to get back into studio and face-to-face. But we launched it and we launched it during the pandemic. So that was really hard to pivot and shift, and with doing production and figuring out, a couple podcasts didn't record, we had to shift and pivot. Yeah. So I'm really proud of the launch. I launched it with Embassy Row, Sony. I've since, me and my team have taken it back in. It's now ours. That partnership is over. It was a wonderful partnership to launch with, but for the future and longevity of what I want to do, I'm glad that it's now solely ours to work with. So that was a big thing, to take on all the production and take on, all of that on our own. So our team has really held that, and no one even knows we shifted.
Right. What was the impetus to starting one? Is it to go hand in hand with your Beyond Fresh, or was it your brand?
Everything. It was more about me, Heather Thomson, and that I've always wanted to lean into shining a light on things, or, growing myself and sharing those stories. And I get to meet such incredible people along the way. And I have met incredible people. So I wanted to share with, my audience, some of the things that I had learned from these mentors in my life. And then an author, someone like you that inspires me, I want to now talk to her. So It afforded me, like I say, kind of old friends and new friends is what I say about the podcast, to talk about the things in our lives or the pivotal moments in our life, or share our stories where the listeners feel like they're sitting right here with us and we're having a conversation. And that's what my podcast was about: to educate, grow, inspire, entertain, enlighten. That's what I want to do within my heart.
That's great. That's great. So as you know, my podcast is all about empowering women because, even though we're 50-50 and starting companies in the workforce, just the percentage is not there for the being in C-suite positions or being super successful with their companies. Only 1.7% of companies ever reach $1 million in sales. Yes. Which is crazy, right? So it's I'm trying to get to the root of why that is and how we can empower women, So I guess I would love your 2 cents on what you think, why that's happening, or what we can do to help and support women.
Yeah. Well, thank God we're where we are now, because, we have a way to go, but we've come a long way. And I think it's a general consensus right now of equity, and it's bigger now than it's ever been. And, when Me Too happened, it was funny because I was of course, we we just allowed things, very much like the Black and brown culture, minority culture now, that's like, no, it's not okay anymore. We can't allow a microaggression. We can't allow those things. We have to stand up and people have to take accountability. So I think what happened with women is it was like this big consensus of, well, the glass ceiling still exists, but look at Kamala Harris, look at our, you know what I mean? It's amazing. We have all these women now in Congress and, more than ever. So we are getting places, but we have to acknowledge and not allow some of those small digs, those small throwbacks to women where we have to stand in power in equity. And I don't think that that's going to change overnight. Mm-hmm. I think that it's been a long time coming. Voting is really important. I mean, I don't know about you, but we're about the same age. In 1976, were your parents talking to you about politics?
They may have been, but I was too little. But I remember like back way when, right, when there was but no, not as much. But yes, it was much more friendly, right?
Well, and it also wasn't. I don't think it was, from my experience, it wasn't child's play. Politics weren't, you don't have to worry about that.
I had an uncle who was a senator, so it was kind of.
Oh, okay. So it was a little different. But they probably, who knows if they pressured you or, now my children are so engaged. Yeah. You know what I mean? With politics and understanding it. So those are the shifts that we need. We need more eyes open and, we need goats and we need sheep. That's the way this world works. Do you know what I mean? But we need to be informed. And I think press and the way journalism is happening today, everything is shifting. I mean, I hate to use the word fake news because I feel like it was coined, in a way that I don't believe. But I mean, I myself read stuff and it's like, what is this? This is not journalism.
It's not. There's no place you can find both sides. Tell me both sides and I'm going to figure out the third side.
Yes, exactly. You really have to lean in and do it yourself. You have to do the research yourself and you have to lean into the change that you want to see. And you've got to try to be a part of that change you want to see. If it's in your small little business that does $100,000 a year, or if it's in your big business, it doesn't matter, micro or macro, we have to start to lean into and not acknowledge the change and that we're going to mess up. And that the only way that we can learn is to make a mistake, is to fail.
Yeah. It's interesting because I had put a poll out to my community and I asked like, what's your biggest hurdle or what are you, fighting the most? And a lot of them, the number one was imposter syndrome. So that is kind of what, like, I feel a lot of what's holding women back. It's not even what's happening to us. It's what's happening inside of us.
Yes.
We're not believing. And why is that? Like what? Like just get out of our heads. Like we're perfectionists. We talk to ourselves. I don't think women support each other as much as they could be supporting each other, And so it's just like, what do we as individuals need to do? And just to believe in ourselves, I think is also a huge.
Yeah. I think there's a difference that will shift for women personally in really this word of equity and understanding equity. We're talking about pronouns now. How do you relate? What's your pronoun? Are you he, him? Are you, she, her? Are you, they? And I think that shift alone in how a person feels that has nothing to do with their sexuality is going to be an important shift because for some women, I think that it's been a difficult issue for women. For some women, freedom and empowerment is like cleavage and sexy dressing and lipstick, and that's their freedom and that's their power. And another woman might be looking down at like, you're making it difficult for me who's buttoned up. And we need to accept that power comes in many different ways and it's not in one cookie cutter way. And we have to have acceptance for people. You know what I mean? And if someone wants to wear a low-cut shirt to work, she should not be subjected to sexual harassment.
Right.
And then the person that doesn't wear the low-cut shirts can't say, well, she shouldn't wear that low-cut shirt. Right. I think that in that way, women supporting each other we've been against each other just because stylistically or even personally inside our own hearts and souls, maybe there's some struggle with who we are, what empowers us or what we need. So I think acceptance generally across the board and understanding that we're not all the same and understanding these equities are going to change a lot in life and a lot for empowerment and equity, equality. You know what I mean? Where we start to see human beings as human beings and not as man or woman, not as black, brown, or white. You know what I mean? Obviously, we have to see color, but we have to make those adjustments and shifts for systemic longitude. And that doesn't happen fast. It doesn't happen overnight. You don't change opinions overnight. We have to sit in it. We have to be uncomfortable and we have to then make the mistakes to forge the change.
Right.
And
Right.
I've made those same mistakes.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's definitely true. What would you say is the number one characteristic or quality of a person in order to be a successful entrepreneur? Obviously, you've been very successful in every endeavor that you've taken on. And so what would you, well, not, you've tried, you failed, you got back up, you're doing it
Yes,
again, you wear many hats, so you have to fail in order to be successful, right? We
that's
all
right.
know that. So, but putting that aside, you are a successful person in general. And so what would you say that, what attribute is that from? Like, what do you think that number one?
I think you have to push fear aside and failure is a part of it. And I think that sometimes people don't realize that it is, and listen, I launched Jummy, I launched a brand. It hit out the box. It was high, but there was so much stress and strife and things behind the scenes happening in that business, with a partner that I absolutely did not see eye to eye with. And on any level, really, management styles, the rights to women, like lots of things. So I failed in that sense because I had a bad partner for me,
Mhm.
for my beliefs. And so I think that you have to really push fear aside and take everything head on. Scrape knees, like you say, are part of the game, but you don't know what failure looks like. You don't know where it's going to come at you from. It could be a woman starting a business who realizes that she's neglecting her family. You know what I mean? And she needs to work on that and how to balance that better. So we're never perfect. Every day is going to be a lesson. Hopefully there's a lesson. And I say we all get a new day each and every day. So the success for an entrepreneur is to believe in yourself and know that you're going to fail and be kind to yourself and make sure you lean into the uncomfortableness and the growth and sit in it. Like when I say we fail fast, I mean like the mistakes that we can understand, but there are mistakes that we're making right now in Beyond Fresh we don't even know about yet.
That's so true. This has been amazing. I wish you the best of luck as you grow your company and everything else that you're doing and your podcast. So thank you so much for your time.
Oh my God, I loved you having me on, and thank you so much for your time. And I'll be back anytime you want.
Definitely. I would love that.